like you.
So how about that feminism, huh? What the hell happened to feminism? I don't know, but I'm going to talk about it. And if you're the sort of person who's enraged by the idea of a man talking about feminism, or just enraged by the idea of people having opinions you don't like, now is a good time to stop listening. Just turn it off and go back to your whatever it is you're doing. Maybe have a cup of chamomile tea and some evening primrose oil. Yeah, that's a joke based on the idea that women who have negative feelings do so because of their menstrual time, which isn't always true. Well, it's sometimes true. Maybe 3/31 of the time it's true. Well, the rest of the time, no. So if you get annoyed about something and a guy says, hey, it's your menstrual time, and it is your menstrual time, you need to shut the fuck up. But if it's not, you are entitled to think of that in terms of a sexist comment. Right, everyone's gone. All the troublesome people are gone. All we've left are people who don't mind a man talking about feminism and some masochists. And as we all know, masochists deserve everything they get. So if we're going to talk about feminism, we better nail down what we're talking about. Which is going to involve a very quick recap. Feminism is broken up into nebulous waves that all just sort of crash into each other, right? First wave feminism was around 1900-ish and was mainly concerned with equality, equality for women, things like marriage and child custody and property rights, and later on they were concerned with voting rights, which is, great. And then Simone de Beauvoir more or less invented second wave feminism with her book called Le Deuxième Sexe, The Second Sex, which was essentially a Marxist analysis of feminism by an existentialist, which sounds kind of but it isn't in fact brilliant, because this was 1949 and no one had ever done anything like that before. It's a fantastic book. It's full of proper scholarship, and logical arguments. You should read it. Anybody who's interested in feminism should read The Second Sex by Simone de Beauvoir. Second wave feminists, they kind of saw women, like culture and political inequalities, as more or less the same kind of thing. Like first wave feminists were just interested in political inequalities, stuff, legal things, right? But second wave feminists felt that I suppose they felt that what was happening in women's personal lives was part of a larger problem of systematic sexist power structures, right? Now, systematic sexist power structures is the kind of thing you'll find in academic language, but also all those words actually mean something, which is nice. I don't like using meaningless language, but if I say systematic sexist power structures, you'll understand what I mean by that. And whenever you hear the word power structures or social class or other words that mean the same thing, what you're dealing with is a Marxist analysis, whether you like it or not. So second wave. Third wave feminism, if you feel like jumping into the mid 1990s, was about expanding feminism to include women who were not white and not middle class. Which was one of the major criticisms of second wave feminism, was that it was just like white middle class women were talking about women as if it included all women, and that's been a problem for feminists, I guess, right from the start, but really now, because feminists will say women this and women that, and they think they're speaking for all women, and that's a problem, a real problem, and I don't even know how to fix it. They can't just say, it seems to me that women this, or the women that I know this and that. It has to be women, all women this, all women that. It's depressing. But the third wave feminism was engineered specifically to stop that. You can summarize most of the third wave feminism stuff from the word intersectionality. They use the word intersectionality because, like, a lot of this feminist theory comes out of America, and they figured out pretty quickly that if you're a black woman, your experience of being a woman is completely different to if you're a white woman. And if you're a lesbian woman, your experience of being a woman and the ways in which you're discriminated against will be different than if you're a white woman. And if you're a poor woman who's got no money, your experience of being a woman and of being discriminated against will be different, and so on. And then all the ways those things all intersect, the way they analyze it is called intersectionality. Like black women and lesbian black women have been having such different experiences of being a woman that something like intersectionality had to be cooked up to deal with it, which is fair enough. Like, I get it. Intersectionality is something worth looking at. And it, unlike a lot of language, again, intersectionality is exactly what it says in the tin. It is the ality of intersections, which is how they all intersect. And it's great. It really is. I mean, it was at the time. That's kind of great too now. It's good to be aware of things that you weren't aware of before. And if a load of black women come up and say, well, our experience of being a woman is utterly different to your cosseted, white, middle class experience, well, then that's good. You know, the more data we have to work with to make conclusions, the better. Then there's fourth wave feminism, the latest fourth wave feminism, if it exists at all. And by the way, this is being argued all the time by academic people. Is much more recent and is generally understood, although not completely, is generally understood to be feminist activism via social media or with other kinds of technology. Now, the good news is that everyone has access to some sort of social media, at least in the Western world, and the bad news is that social media amplifies and encourages the most banal and trivial concerns as if they were actually important. And this is a problem of social media, not of feminism. Like, you can't blame feminism for that. The social media amplifies and encourages the most banal and trivial concerns in every field, in every way. Like, you try to get the news, and you look at all the news sites, and it's like, I don't give a goddamn what Kim Kardashian is doing. Do you know what I mean? Why, neither should you. Just let her do her own business. I don't care. So that's where we are now. The cutting edge of feminism right now is, you could call it fourth wave feminism, I suppose, but all we ever see of it is, like, generally, is a particularly vocal branch that I call toxic feminism. I'm not the only person calling it toxic feminism, by the way, but that's what I call it because it's accurate. And I call it toxic feminism specifically to set it apart from the arguably more useful brands of fourth wave feminism that I was talking about a second ago. But that's what I'll be talking about here, the toxic stuff, because I'm fine with the rest of it and I have nothing to say about it. That wouldn't make much of a podcast, would it? This type of feminism is grand, don't care. Done, right? I'm sorry. I'm critiquing feminism because there's a certain type of modern feminist who seems far more interested in trashing men and obsessing over trivial details about how men do things than they are about empowering women, which is what I always thought feminism was supposed to be about. Well, they don't seem interested in that at all. If you criticize it, they'll say, oh, well, you know, people like me were fighting for the vote back in 1800s and people like you wouldn't want us to have the vote. That's a very different concept of feminism to the one I'm criticizing. That's why you have to be careful when you use the word feminism, that you're talking about the same thing over and over again. The number one problem in people having debates about feminism is they're talking about different things and using the same word to refer to it, feminism. I think most people, like most women I guess, who consider themselves to be feminists or just say they're interested in it, they just go about their business and live their lives and they're too bloody busy being grown-ups to worry about these things. But the noisy feminists, they honestly believe that they're fighting some sort of battle. They honestly believe that they're helping women by trashing men. It's a problem of ideology. You can't argue against it. They're not interested in discussions or moving anything forward. They just want to trash men and pretend like that's not what they're doing. This ties into something else I'm working on for this podcast about postmodernism, which I guess breaks down to the odd conviction that how you feel about something is a valid aspect of what that thing really is in the real world, which is total bullshit. How you feel about something does not define anything. Not in the real world, but postmodernists think it does. They think that's a part of what that thing is now because you feel a certain way about it, regardless of the feeling. So critiquing toxic feminism is going to take all day, you know, and I don't have all day, so I'm going to break this thing to different parts. I'm going to get back to it in other weeks. Not next week, you know, because this is going to be, and I want to be, hey, if I can at all. The first example of this kind of bullshit is mansplaining, right? This bullshit. Mansplaining. It's a word. Yeah, mansplaining. Like any of these juicy terms that get thrown around. Originally, mansplaining had a useful function. It was specifically for when a man would talk over or correct or dismiss a woman's personal experience. Right? Not any of her opinions or anything, but her personal experience. This is something I guess like even now it still happens, and it's a bad thing, no doubt. It does actually happen still, not as much, but it does, and it's bad whenever it happens. But now that word mansplaining has been made totally worthless by roaming gangs of toxic feminists who don't understand what it means, and they use it any time a man says anything at all to a woman that they don't like. And if you try to explain where they're going wrong, guess what? You know? So here's the news. If a man explains something to you, that's not mansplaining, that's education. If a man has a different opinion to you, that's not mansplaining, that's a difference of opinion. If a man talks about a personal experience that doesn't fit with a narrative you were hoping to extrapolate from your own personal experience, that is also not mansplaining, that's an expanded data set. If a man says something and you don't like it because he's a man, or you don't think that men are entitled to have opinions on certain things, that's not mansplaining, that's just sexism. And it's a shame that this needs to be said out loud, but this all would apply in exactly the same way if a woman was talking to a man. In other words, if a woman explains something to you, that's not anything other than education. If a woman has a different opinion to you and you're a man, that's not anything, that's just a difference of opinion, and so on and so forth. Always be wary of any theory that considers any challenge to be a validation of that theory. That's dangerous, dangerous thinking. When you develop a theory that's so totally bulletproof that it cannot be discussed by anybody. And it looks if you're inside the theory, it looks like it's waterproof, but actually it's useless. Utterly useless. Now, if you were going to say something was mansplaining, you'd have to put it to a test, and the test is, would this man, the bad guy in your scenario, would this man have said this patronizing thing if he was talking to another man? And why, or why not? And I do ask people this, if they, like I do it online, obviously not in person. And I've discovered that the why part or the why not part is the most interesting, because in my experience, when you keep asking why, when you keep digging down into the reasons why people believe things, it boils down to men are assholes. Which is, not true in the sense that asshole is gender neutral. And when they say men are assholes, they don't mean men are assholes in the same way that women are assholes. They just mean men are assholes, full stop. Trust me, asshole is definitely a gender neutral phenomenon. If you think talking over someone or talking down to someone is exclusively something men do to women, then I can only guess that you've never been in a relationship with a woman. And there's a definite tendency amongst some of these feminists, when a man is explaining his experience, to dismiss, belittle or silence him. I've seen it over and over. You're a man, you don't get to have an opinion. You're a man, what the hell would you know about it? You're a man, fuck you. When you get these feminists in a weak moment, when they think no one's listening, they come out with what they're really thinking. One of these people that the toxic feminists love, oh they love her, is Laurie Penny. And she tweeted once that it's more useful to say check your male privilege than shut the fuck up, you don't know anything, you're a dude. She tweeted that. And she was nice enough to state in explicit terms exactly what the term male privilege means to her. Which is, you're a man, sit down and shut up. You're worthless. You have nothing of value to add to this discussion. Right? That's what she means, and she said it. Another one of these people the toxic feminists love is Roxane Gay. And she tweeted once, calling me a misandrist like it's a bad thing. Misandrist is a made-uppy Greek word, and it means man-hating. And she was nice enough to openly state that not only does she hate men, but it's something to be proud of. It's something to aim for if you want to be a feminist. Hating men. And these are not, by the way, edge extreme feminists. These are the feminists that people will look to as leading fourth wave feminism. They'll think of these people as leaders of the movement, not as fringe elements. The fringe elements just say it outright. I'll link these tweets in the text box underneath so you can check them for yourself, because it does sound like I've made them up. That kind of extremity, that you'd be proud of hating men, that's something to be proud of, and you should be as well. That kind of thinking is exactly the problem. The main point is that there's a significant vicious streak in this type of feminism that's far more interested in trashing men than empowering women. It's interested in engaging in the most petty abuse and demeaning language towards men, but not much in the way of constructive attempts to nail together a positive female identity, which would have been the point, if not the major feature, of first, second and third wave feminism. And this again comes into the postmodernism thing. postmodernism is all over the place now. And postmodernism is a tool of critical theory. But it's not designed to build anything. It's not going to build anything. It's just designed to deconstruct and take things apart. But you can't spend your whole life taking things apart. At some point you have to construct something. You have to construct your identity. You have to construct, I suppose, how you relate to other people and so on. Well, this fourth wave feminism is not interested in that at all. This toxic feminism just wants to tear people down and has nothing to say positive. It's all negative, 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 negative the whole time. And because, I guess, being a victim is very, very seductive as an ideology, it's difficult to shake it once you have it in your head. Like, how's trashing people that you're trying to explain? Like, if you're trying to explain to somebody where they're going wrong, say in this theory, you're trying to explain to men that they're dominant in society or whatever, how is trashing them going to help them understand that? And the second thing, oh, here's another stupid word, manspreading. This one also has man at the front of it. Manspreading. This word, manspreading, means when a man spreads his legs when he's sitting on the bus or the train, so a woman can sit next to him, or so they think, right? Now, these toxic feminists, they feel the full weight of history. And they load it with a significance that it doesn't have. They'll say things like he's staking a claim or he's acting in an entitled fashion to space, which is clearly labelled public access and so on. And of course it's all bullshit. And sometimes when you're sitting on a bus or a train and you're a man, your legs move out. That's it. That's as far as it goes. You can read more stuff into it if you want, but that's on you. Now, firstly, I have never known any man to do anything which would stop a woman sitting next to him. If anything, men on public transport are hoping a woman sits next to him. And secondly, and this was the big counter-argument at the time, women often put their bags in the seats next to them on public transport in a move which can only dissuade people, some of whom will be men, from sitting next to them. So when this is pointed out, the toxic feminists, they'll retreat into ever more stupid arguments about how the women might be afraid of men and how this sort of behaviour is justified when a woman does it because, and you keep asking questions, and you'll find out that this behaviour is justified when a woman does it because men are assholes. All of these things boil down to men are assholes. Keep digging and you'll get to the real opinion. Men are assholes. That's what they think, and that's pretty much the sum total of it. Now, if you think all men are assholes, that's fine. But don't get upset if the men you're speaking to find it hard to relate to that. Or even if they laugh at you openly. It's like those girls on Twitter whose entire feed is 50% all men are assholes and 50% why don't I have a boyfriend. Like, I think I might have cracked that mystery, but you're not going to like it. You know, if you think all men are assholes, that's fine. But don't lie about it. And don't deny it when it's pointed out that this is your opinion. Just be honest. Just say it, you think all men are assholes. And then I know exactly what I'm dealing with. It's nothing to do with being patronising. It's nothing to do with dismissing your experience. It's nothing to do with sitting on the bus funny or anything. It's just to do with you and your shitty sexist opinion about men. And by the way, you are allowed to have a really stupid opinion about men. But it seems very strange to hold men responsible for that. I think it's enough for today. Remember to, if you like this, tell your friends. If you like it, click the little likey thing and I guess subscribe if you want to hear more about this, because I'm going to be talking about it in the future. Not next week, but at some point. I'm going to label this Feminism 1 and the next thing is going to be Feminism 2. Hopefully next week I'll have something a bit more cheery. But like and subscribe or whatever. If you liked it, tell all your friends. If you didn't like it, tell everybody you know. If you have a negative reaction to this, tell everybody you know. And I'll talk to you again next week. And I am